Yo, what's going on people, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be making something a little different for you guys. For the last like 5 weeks I'd say I've done Future and Lil Baby type beats and loops, but today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make hard pain loops for people like Gunna and Lil Durk. Let's get into it. So before we get into anything, I'm going to show you guys the sample, so here it is. So the main sound that we're using for this one is a piano. I'd say this is the main sound for any pain beat. I'm using the Noir Pure piano, and for this loop I'm working in E minor, and as you can see I've got some very simple chords, not too fast. I'd say one of the key things towards making a pain beat or a pain loop is keeping it slow, because that gives it more of a sad emotional feel to it. So for this one I'm starting off an E, and then it goes down to a D and then a C, and just to give it a bit more of emotional, dark, slow feel to it, I've kept this one going on a bit longer than the others, and then it just goes back up to the D here. This is just a very simple chord progression that you can copy and add your own variation to it for any pain beat. So when coming up with a chord progression, I would recommend that you move on to adding or taking away notes like I have here. So this is the exact same chord progression, but as you can see, I've got some of the notes starting a bit later, and then I've added in a few notes like this up here and these ones up here, just to take away from the repetition and adds a bit more excitement to it, and it also adds melody. So one thing I like to do is going down and then kind of working my way up in the chord. So I've got the root notes playing off the chord, and then it kind of goes up an octave and then to the third note of the chord, and then it goes into the main chord up here, which plays all the way through. But yeah, I like to keep it so it kind of has something going on at all times but not overcomplicated, and then altogether it sounds like this. Another thing you can do to make these sound more realistic is on Mac press Option S, or I think it's Alt S on Windows, and then it should come up with this. And basically if you put this time stretch knob to the right, that kind of makes it strum into the chord so it sounds a bit more realistic and authentic. Or another thing that you can do is Option R or Alt R, and it comes up with this, and you can just mess around with these knobs right here, like the velocity, the pan, the release, and that also just varies everything. So as you can see at the bottom here, the velocities are all mixed about. It just makes it sound more realistic. Okay, so next up is the counter melody. I would recommend doing this in another pattern just so that you can separate them if you want to. And for this, as you can see, I've kind of just got like a few different things going on the mid range, I would call it here, and then I've got high pitch rolls up here. I also like to put some higher pitch notes at the end. It just kind of ends off with a nice energy, ready to go back into the beginning again. To be honest, I don't really have too much advice musically to give you for this. I would just say put this in the key mode here so that you can see all the light notes that are in key, and kind of just mess around with stuff that works within the key that you're working with until you get something that you like the sound of. And also try keep the first half different to the second half, just to keep it not too repetitive. So that sounds like this. So for the mixing on the piano, I've gone with a delay, and I've just left it how it is, and then just turned the percent down to 7. And then I've got a reverb where I've turned the size up quite a bit and put the low cut just so that the lower notes don't reverb too much. And then I've got this EQ as well, which is my favorite EQ to use, and then I'm just taking out some more lows here. Okay, so next up I kind of wanted to add some ambience in the background, so I've gone with this pretty pulse pad from Analog Lab 5, and I would recommend going with something that's very soft sounding and not too sharp, because the piano is kind of the main sound and you don't want to take away from that. Just want something that kind of sits in the background and gives it more of an ambient feel. And for this one I'm literally just following the exact same chord progression, except I got the second and the third note of the chord just kind of playing on a little bit later than the rest of it, and that's just what it does all the way through, and then altogether it sounds like this. So for the mixing on the pad, I'm taking out all of the lows here and also a little bit of the highs here, just so that it's not too sharp. And then I've got a fruity chorus at 78%, just adds a bit of wave to it. And then I've got a fruity reverb, and then last of all I've got an ozone imager, and I've just put the width up just to give it a bit more space. So next up I'm using a pain accent. If you just search up on YouTube like a pain accent kit or one shot kit, I'm sure you'll be able to find one similar, and that sounds like this. And for the mixing on this one, I've turned this EQ down here just to take out the low end. Then I've added a reverb where I've made it quite spacious by adding wet and then taking the dry down quite a bit. And then I've got this EQ here where I've lowered it here, and then if you go on this little part above the main knob here and drag it down, it compresses the part where you've got it. So it compresses this here, which has kind of got sharp frequencies going on, so I just wanted to take it out. And then I've also got all the low ends taken out here. And then last of all, I've got this vocal one shot just playing here. And for the mixing on this one, I'm taking out the low ends using an EQ. And then I've got a fruity chorus down to 50%, just add a bit of wave to it. And then I've got a reverb where I've put the dry down and the wet up just to make it very spacious. So that is how to make pain loops for people like Lil Durk and Gunna. If anyone wants to make a beat with this, just hit me up, I'll send it to you. And I can send out more pain loops if you need as well. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment down below what kind of stuff you want to see next, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.